Welcome to South Philly Sauce, a special edition brought to you by Jack Daniels and Audacy and WIP. So it's special because Ashlyn Sullivan's not here. So in her place, we got somebody even prettier. we got Broads. We got Hunter Brody here. Good morning or good afternoon, Broads.
What's going on? Yeah, listen, I'll stay away from that. I can't say, but I'm a handsome man, I like to think. No, all jokes aside, I'm pumped, man. We got a hockey team to talk about, and I'm actually intrigued by what's ahead here in Flyers land. I don't know how Flyers fans feel, but I am definitely excited to think about the future.
Yeah, it's been a bizarre year from, coaching changes, all that stuff. And it's really odd being in Philadelphia, having lived through that disgusting process with the Sixers, to have people actually patient with the Flyers. But my question is, how long are fans really going to be patient, and how much do they want to see this go up a level next year? Can you afford to just do the same? So I guess we'll start out with, what do you think that you can continue to be as patient as Danny Briere and Keith Jones have been here? Do you think the fans will buy into that patience?
It's a great question. I don't think they are going to buy in because as we talk about it on the air, whenever I get a chance to squeeze in some orange and black, people don't really look at it as front office to front office and giving each respected front office time. It's, we haven't won in 50-something years. It's time to go. So they almost clump in Chuck Fletcher's tenure, the contracts to Kevin Hayes, the deals that were given out, Ivan Provorov, and that whole situation. They clump that into Flyers hockey, which is unfair because Briere has to clean up a lot of that mess. And I think he did a damn good job. They moved on from a lot of pieces, Lawton, Frost, Farabee, and they regrouped with seven picks in the first two rounds for this upcoming draft. So I don't know if they're going to be as patient as they need to be, but I also think Mitchkov coming over early, offer sheets being a possibility. Maybe there's a way where both sides can win. Maybe it won't be as long as it needs to be, where Danny can push certain buttons that happen to be available now, where it's like a good marriage of patient-ish, but also kind of kicking it into gear, if that makes sense. Or maybe I'm being too optimistic again on that.
Well, I think most people think they're going to kick it up a gear because Danny Briere said we've reached rock bottom. When you announce that you've hit the bottom, you can't. There's no sub basement. You can't sell that sauce anymore. It's as simple as that. You have to. To me, you've got to add something. Which brings me to this. It's an unbelievable offseason coming up. So I'm assuming you watched the last game.
Yes.
In Buffalo.
Uh-huh.
I have never, honest to God, I've covered a lot of games and a lot of scenarios. I cannot believe what I went through in that last game, screaming in the studio with Ashlyn and Hartnell, what are you doing challenging a goal? Why are you calling a timeout? What the hell are you doing trying to win this game? I don't blame the players, but I mean, I honestly was like, what's you're going to get fired if you win this game. I mean, were you in the same spot with this?
Yeah, and the thing is, I've been so not that I'm anti-tank. I did want them to lose games because I know it's better for them. But when there's 15 games left, I have a group chat that goes off, and it's, well, if the Red Wings this, and if the Columbus this, there's 15 games left. You're going to drive yourself nuts if you study the standings on a night-to-night basis where each team still has 15 to 20 to go. Relax. But once you get to the final game, and you know the difference between 4 and 7, and you can't have anything go to overtime. I had a rough time, especially because I want to see Forster score as much as possible. Right. I want to see Mitchkov get 26 goals. So when they're out there doing their thing, it's like, all right, can we call us off? You got a job to do here. Let's let a week one in, please. So it's a tough balance.
If it had gone to overtime, Hartsey thought I was crazy. Would you have pulled the goalie? You don't get a point. You lose the point if you lose in overtime and you pull the goalie.
So are you saying pull the goalie before OT so it doesn't even go to OT? Okay.
I'm saying the 3-on-3 overtime, pull the goalie and put another player on the ice.
Well, at that point, shouldn't we pull the goalie? If it was tied and there was a minute to go in the third, could you pull the goalie then at that point?
Yeah, because I mean that's how crazy it was to go, because when you look at this draft, there's supposed to be a pretty deep draft, right? I mean, because of COVID, this is a year a lot of kids matured or whatever. However, presumably, if you believe what you read, and I usually watch college hockey unless I watch the London Knights. That's about it. Just to really see, and I don't know the Finn or the Swede that well, just from World Juniors or whatever when you watch. But if you're in the top 5, there are legitimate two centermen, and the top defenseman that you could get. I think that they can spin some of these draft picks. I actually think they're going to do something on draft night to try to, if they have a target that they want to have go on there.
Good. I mean, I need that. I need the blue chippers that move the needle, the Cutter Gauthiers of the world prior to the disaster. But, guys that you get excited about that can be franchise changers. And we know how important a 1D is. We know how important a 1C is. They lack both of those. So if you are going to look at the draft board and you establish this could be our 1C of the future, then you take some of those. But that's why you got all those assets. So you can start bouncing around and get creative in times of need. So whether you go through offer sheets, whether you establish someone in the draft, however you do it, we need to make sure that we check one of those boxes, if not multiple boxes this offseason, but one being get your number 1 D-man or get your number 1 centerman of the future. You have to. I mean, you really do have to. That's one of the number 1 things on the to-do list of Danny Briere this offseason. You got to start selling that you have that piece to the fan base.
Well, that's exactly why when in Philadelphia you say, well, Flyers are doing it right, they're going to take a step. But you just went through the alphabet of why this isn't as close as I think some people think it is. When you say that your team, all you need is a 1C, a 1D, a top goalie, and a new coach, man, that doesn't seem to me like you're a breath away from the playoffs. It seems to me like, well, I don't know, man. Now, granted, there's a wild card in the goalie. We'll talk about that in a little bit. There's, we don't know, but there's a wild card there. But man, that is if you can do that. I mean, Colorado did everything on the fly this year, but look at the base they had. McKinnon and McCarr. I mean, that base.
Landeskog back now.
Landeskog back. I mean, but if you're the Flyers and you're looking at, where's your top center? Where's your top defenseman? Where's your top power play guy? Who's going to coach? It's like, man, I don't know if it's really fair. I can say, okay, they're going to be better, but I don't know if I can spin this like next year, baby, playoffs on the way.
Right. Now, listen, that's fair. That's almost like saying in a football sense, all we're missing is the quarterback, the left tackle, the wide receiver one, and the corner. Well, it's a pretty big deal. So, yeah, you're right with the goalie as well. They don't even have a serviceable option right now in net, and you can't run it back into that situation again. So you're right. They have some major holes to fill out here. And which direction do you want to take this? Because I got thoughts on goalie. I got thoughts on head coach. I got thoughts on a lot. So where do you want to go?
Well, I think we should start with the goalies.
Okay.
Because I don't know what deals were cut, and God knows I'm not a geopolitician, but I do know that you cannot have. I went to practice, and I've seen all kinds of practices. I saw a practice with 3 nets lined up on the rink. Uh-huh. I've cut everything from peewees to bantams to college and I'm like, what is that? What is going on here? What is going on? So I don't care. Whatever happens, that can't happen again. And I know Fedotov went through hell to get here, but I still don't know the Kolosov. I don't know what deal was cut there, but you can't run that back. Having said that, I don't know that Sam Ersson proved to me that he's a guy that can. I know he's an NHL goalie. I know if Carter Hart was here, they'd have a hell of a tandem with Ersson. But I'm like, maybe you go there. My plan might be go get a veteran goaltender.
That's the answer.
Get a year. I don't care if it's Reimer that says he wants to play one. Somebody. to come in. People say, oh, it's the old school doing but no, it's a bridge. It's a bridge to get by.
You nailed it. That's exactly what you need to do. Because if we want guys like, and I'm actually intrigued by the back end of Drysdale's season and all, but if you want some of these defensemen, right, we need Cam York to bounce back. If we need, you got to have stability in the D zone. This is unacceptable. You can't do anything with these goalies, unfortunately. So I couldn't agree more. We're not going to have the future with the snap of our fingers. Maybe it's this 19-year-old Russian in the KHL that eventually pops in. But as for now, you got to have a foundation of just being able to have something serviceable at the NHL level, because then you can expand on, how to improve Forster in the neutral zone. Well, if you can't get out of your D zone because you're letting up shorthand or short side goals or any of that stuff, then you can't get established in the neutral zone to go out on a rush. So you got to find something, and it can remind me of, I'm just throwing this name out there, like a Brian Elliott type. Let's go get a Brian Moose, right? Let's just go something of that nature that just allows for you to be able to have structure with your team. Because without that, some of these defensemen rack up maybe -10. That is zero influence on who they actually are as defensemen. Not that I love this group, but you get my point. They need something, dude. They do.
Yeah, not even some of the forwards that you want to take chances. You can take a chance if your goalie can be an eraser. I mean, it's as simple as that. I'm still not convinced, and this will go off the rails, but the Carter Hart thing goes to court. I don't know anything about what's going to happen, where. But if it turns out that he can come back in the league, I wouldn't absolutely shut the door on it as long as everything's proven that the character and all that stuff comes out. And if he wanted to come back, I mean, I know that kid just from watching him. He's a rink rat. I am not trying in any way to say whatever happened. I don't know.
Right.
But I do know that if they go to court, and they're all going to be separate trial. They're all together, but separate decisions, I guess. I don't know that I would necessarily say it's impossible. I'm not the owner of the teams, obviously, but man, I mean, if that could happen, that would be a whole different situation. I'm not counting on it, but I'm not saying it's an impossibility.
Sure. And I'm curious, just from a Danny Briere perspective, a Jonesy perspective, and those guys more than I do, but I'm just saying, if part of them is, just getting Flyers hockey culture back, the excitement, I mean, they need a goalie, and that's a big deal. And if everything is clean, and that's a big hypothetical, but if everything is clean, would that scare them, that the image of, wanting to get fans happy and excited again, just having that surrounding them, right or wrong, would that scare them into bringing him back if possible? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know, man. I think in this situation, you don't even want for them to speculate is an impossibility to see what happened, because look, nobody knows until we hear. Nobody actually knows what's going on. So we'll see what happens there. But I do think one way or another, there's got to be somebody else in play. I mentioned Ryan. I mean, I see what he my God, he almost won the game. I mean, he's the reason the Flyers didn't win that last game. He was so good at the end. It was ridiculous.
Maybe we could go get that Zamboni driver from Toronto a few years back.
Somebody. I mean, and maybe the Ersson gets pushed at that point, and he's more consistent, if you will, to see what goes on. So that's one. And then if you just move up one level, like I look at this defense, and you mentioned Drysdale, and I like his skill level. However, when I watch Lane Hudson in Montreal. And I mean, I'm a big BU fan, so I watched him there. I watched his brother there now.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I watched Makar. He was at UMass, and now he's like, Drysdale can move. There's no doubt. But I don't know that he's ever going to see in front of him like a play develop the way those guys do. He doesn't get screwed into a corner, Hudson. He goes in and he breaks ankles, and then the puck comes across or whatever. I'm worried about Drysdale in that. I'm not worried about the skill set. He's got wheels, he's got boots to spare, but I don't know that he can make a play like that. I was hoping to run a power play, literally. So I am really worried about this Bermuda Triangle, that I call it, that happened. You moved Gauthier, and you mentioned him earlier. It might have been the highlight of the season, that game. he's turned into a pretty damn good player and a power play guy. If Drysdale and York can't run that power play, and they passed on the kid in Denver,
Booyah. Yeah.
So I will put my reputation on the fact that he's going to run an NHL power play from day one. He's that good. If that happens, and this is the third part is York, who I thought had a disappointing season, man, that's a triple setback there if that happens. Now I don't know what your read on Drysdale is, what your ceiling on Drysdale and York are, because to me this depends on your ceiling on York and Drysdale. I think that's why you could pass on Zeev, because you thought these two were going to be that good. To me, if they're not, it's a real huge setback. So you're feeling on the ceiling on those two players.
Yes, yeah, I'm actually very nervous about Cam York. Like, I don't know if he's going to be able to be a part of this future, which is kind of concerning considering, I wanted Cole Caulfield. The kid had 101 goals in one season for NTDP one year. I don't know how you pass up on that. Now, I know he's small, this and that, but you went with Cam York, who you could have sold me, another Team USA guy. It's not as if he had a bad track record by any means, but I don't know about him. And I'm just wondering if the torts factor was the difference in him maybe not having the confidence. I'm really concerned with him. With Drysdale, you're right. He's nowhere close to those other guys. I was almost looking at it as the bar was so low that I think it's now salvageable, where he can be maybe a second pair guy, which is not a premier guy by any means, but can produce offensively like a Shane Gostisbehere type of role-ish, but that's where I see with those two guys. But this is the interesting thing, and I've listened to Jonesy talk a bunch, and I don't think he's wrong with this mentality of the importance of a number one guy who can log in 28 minutes a night, shut down, good stick, good passing, all this stuff, and knowing that that's something that he really wants to build around. What did they see in Jet Luchenko as a ceiling compared to Buyum's ceiling as a player? Because I don't think if you maximize Jet Luchenko, and I'm not trying to rip on it. He made the team at a camp. He's fast. He made World Juniors at a young age. Like, there's a lot there, obviously. But if you said his ceiling was second line center and Buyum's ceiling is a 1D, I just don't know how you value Jet Luchenko over a Buyum with that being such a focus of a franchise, a number one D-man. That's what they were stressing. So that's my concern. You're right. This D-core, Sanheim, nice story that he bounced back from the contract, but he can't be a number one franchise-changing defenseman. You know what I mean?
No, this is the Ellis. This go, all the way back to that. And then I think the reason they passed was, I think it's because they thought York and Drysdale, and the size, they're littler guys. I think they thought those two would make a bigger step. I don't know, York. You mentioned Tortorella. I actually think York's banged up. Seeing him in the locker room all the time. I'm presuming the way he plays now that it's an upper body shoulder type thing, which when you're a defenseman, it really shows up, because whether you're angling, whether you're surfing, I don't care what you're doing, your shoulder, if you don't have 100% strength, it really does affect your entire game, where you're going to bring somebody, how you're going to play. So I hate to say, I hope it was an injury, but I hope it was an injury.
Yeah, I always thought that he'd hopefully develop more with the offensive side of the game. And I don't know, there was a time there under Torts where I thought it was trending in the right direction, but I don't know. I really don't know. And how much of the real quick on the Buyum thing, I know people are brought up that he has the same agent as Gauthier. So was there fear that, now we'll double check that and get back to you. But if they did have the same agent, that can't stop you from drafting another premier talent in your eyes.
No, not if you thought for sure that's the guy. Not if you thought for sure. I think they kind of thought what they're bringing along. Bonk's coming in. It's like, okay, we've got, we're kind of settled here. I think now what they're finding out is, look, let's face it, Zamula. Let's go A to Z. Andre and Zamula. Andre looked like he had some game, and he lost it. Now, to be fair, and I'm a Tortorella fan, I like the way he coaches. I thought he brought some people on. I don't think it was just Tortorella with York. When I talked to Torts before the season, I remember I told him I thought York was going to turn into a team leader. And he told me, he said, a year ago, I would have told you were crazy when they sent him down. He goes, but now I can see it. I think because of what he has in the locker room. I don't know that it was so much, but it was ugly at the end. It was legitimately ugly at the end.
Yeah.
They both went kind of overboard on it. And,
yeah. Well, when you get not scratched, when you sit there for a whole game on the bench and you're not playing, something happened.
Oh yeah. Oh no. It was with all the team to see. I mean, that's can't, whatever level it is, you can't let the inmates run even if everybody in the locker room. I think the fact that no teammate tried to kind of pull him back, it was not physical, but back him off, I think told you everything. I think that was the end of Torts.
Cooch just spoke too and made it very known. Listen, I showed up to try and work every day, but it wasn't as if me and Torts saw this thing eye to eye.
No, Torts was, you could tell with, Couturier, I don't think had ever had a coach I don't know if they've ever been benched like that. I mean, to be the team leader and to get your ice time cut so much, and frankly, coming back from the back surgeries, you kind of with Tortorella, you have to understand, and I think he's the last coach we're going to see in Philadelphia to be able to coach like that. Not an assistant. You can have assistants like the Eagles have their Fangio. You can have assistants. But to be a head coach like that or a manager, I don't know that that's going to work anymore. But I think they benefited quite a bit from Torts, like leaning on them like that.
I don't hate the Torts thing. My thing was you need to know when to thread the needle at the end with Torts heading into this. But the idea of having a youth movement and he shows you how to show up to work every day, how to compete, all that stuff. I think early on, there's a lot of benefit to that. And maybe it's because I relate to that style of coaching. I always had that style of coaching and it worked. It kicked my ass and I thought I was a better player because of it, even though there was some harsh reality to it. I was a 7th D man by the end. And hey, listen, I'm in and out of the lineup, but that's the nature of the beast. And I was cool with it because I got pushed. But at the end, it was just maybe a hair too long. I think just a hair too long where it got out of whack. But I didn't hate the Torts idea or the logic or anything around it.
No, I think he made players better. I mean, he certainly has made Brink a better player. And I think if you're looking for subtraction, he's a good guy to help you subtract. Frost was Farabee just didn't cut it at the end. I mean, as much effort as he had, he just wasn't getting anywhere. And Frost, I look at Frost and Brink, and I say Brink is doing what they asked Frost to do. Brink is doing. He's winning in the wall. He's playing against the wall. He's winning battles. And he's faster than I thought, to tell you the truth, when I watch him now, because he wasn't getting free on anything. And he's defensively responsible. And he's really good on the line. He's established himself. Frost could never, when I talked to Frost, I remember talking to him and saying, it was an awkward conversation. It was like, they don't think you're tough enough, basically. And he said, I know that. I swear to myself before games to get in there more to do this. I call myself a little bee. I'm like, well, so, I mean, it's obvious that you're on the same page with what they're saying here. But Brink has done that, and I think Tortorella was good for him. And I think he was also good for the guy we're going to talk about. This Mitchkov season, I don't know. Now, you're on a lot on WIP. I'm on like once a week now. I don't think people quite understand how good this guy is and how good a season he had. He was remarkable. The skill set, the ability to create his own shot. Now he was out of shape. I think, honestly, I think he lost his legs during games. You could see it. So whatever he does this summer, but for when he was on, my Lord, I don't know what more you could have asked for him, save somebody to set him up on the power play.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. 26 goals he finished with. And I was actually talking to Martinez about this a couple days ago. The one thing that stands out, we could talk about, his ability to score, his ability to work behind the goal line offensively, some of the angles that he shoots from and the space that he sees. It's ridiculous. But his competitive drive is what separates him from everything else. I mean, this guy's going after Tony D'Angelo. He doesn't care. He just doesn't care. He's willing to get into the face of people. But you got to establish yourself on the ice, and no one's going to push you around, and that's where it starts. I mean, you talk with Frost, skill, right? He's got skill, but he's soft, and when you're soft, all that skill doesn't mean anything. Matvei Mitchkov is the farthest thing from soft, and I think he has that competitive nature that relates to, I'm going to use the big names, not saying he's definitely going to be these guys, but think about the way Ovechkin has competitive nature, right? Think you don't survive as a superstar unless you have that as your base. And there's no doubt about it. This kid at, 19, 20 years old coming into the big show, that was a hell of a season. It really is.
And to me, he's the reason why you have to sort of force feed a little bit this escalation of this team to get better. For him, he wants that big moment so much. I mean, he wanted that hat trick. When Gauthier came in, when they played against Montreal head to head with Hudson, he was so good. These are the moments that he needs. There's no moment that's going to be too big for him. God knows he's going to do some dumb things. I'm convinced he's going to try to do Michigan again at a stupid time, and that's why Torts could pull him back a little bit. But the fact that he wants to do it, and that tells me everything. It's like he wants this. So it's like there's no embarrassment. Look, most great players in any sport I've covered, there's some selfishness. Oh, you won't get there. You just won't get there. And he gets the difference is teammates don't want to play with a player whose selfishness hurts them. Teammates have no problem with the player whose selfishness only benefits them, both on the ice and in the pocketbook, with the way that they play. So I think that they have to try to get improved, obviously for the team, but for Michkov, to find something that clicks with him. I don't know that the chemistry with Konechny is that good right now. I think they need something because Michkov's kind of like Marner in a way. He's almost a centerman on a wing at times to be able to set people up. You have to have your stick on the ice. You have to know because he sees it before you. They have to find something that works specifically with him and to me actually on the power play.
Yeah, the power play thing is actually insane. You could try to have this bad of a power play and accidentally do better. It's unbelievable. But no, you're absolutely right, especially about, I think it's interesting you bring up that like center wing combination kind of vibe. But this is what he's doing without premier talent. You slot in some premier talent around him. And, another thing is, I think this might have been super early on, but I mean, I remember watching him play with the way Torts would shuffle lines or whatever. Is he out there with Delorier? You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here? So what happens when you finally get an established top six guy and they're able to work together and have this chemistry where it's nonstop and it's just going to take another big step? I mean, I don't want to move off of Mitchkov, but we'll just stay there for now. The Mitchkov thing, 26 goals in your rookie year. I was talking to someone who doesn't follow hockey like we do, and they were trying to figure out what the baseline is for goals. And there's guys who score 30 goals a year, and that's a big deal. You're 28, 29, 30, you're consistently putting together 30-goal seasons. Huge deal. If he didn't get healthy scratch, and if maybe some of his time on ice in regular season games weren't benched for a whole third period, he'd probably sniping 30 goals this year as a rookie. I mean, could you imagine seeing that 30 number on a rookie? I mean, he's getting compared to Lindros and all these guys who did it as a young teenager in the league. I can't wait. I can't wait to see where this goes.
And he's done with a power play that's been ineffective.
That too.
And not in shape. I mean, when he comes back next year, I know he's going to be in better shape. I think it was a shock to him what your legs have to be like for the last 15 seconds. of your shift here. What it's going to be in the third period to see what goes on.
Yeah,
that's going to be a huge difference.
I wonder too, real quick. I just thought about this because my buddy plays in the KHL now, and he says some sheets of ice are different based off of what town you're playing in.
Huh.
Like when you go from the big ice sheet, and then you go to the NHL, it's a smaller rink, the bodies, the physicality, out of shape, just getting used to the physicality, that whole thing, gaining that knowledge and heading into an off season about what it's like to play 82. That's a big time information to consume.
Yeah, it's a big time. And if it is whichever rinks are bigger, you can't glide here. You can't. And you can't even glide to the bench on a line change. That's how good this league is. You better have some oxygen to get to the freaking drip in the second period to get to the bench, because that's unacceptable that you didn't have legs to just do that when that goes on. So Demidov in Montreal, like he was dogging it back on a back check. I mean, what are you doing?
Back check.
You have that has to be part of your game here. There's no question. So he's going to be. I mean, that absolutely great coming up. I don't know what to think now. I never thought Shaw would really have a chance to be the next coach. I thought he's a great assistant. God, he's brought some defensemen along from what he had. I mean, despite the fact that maybe York had an off season, but compared to what was before, the structure that they had, the block shots, that's of course working with Torts too. I don't know that I wouldn't give him another chance. Although that game in Buffalo, I was ready to fire him right there. I do know that whatever voice they have on the power play, I would call Adam Oates and say, Adam, I'll give you $5 million to come here and fix this power play. But he's making too much just coaching individuals. But I mean, I think maybe as a bridge coach, but I got to tell you, I watched that. The coach at Western Michigan has some NHL experience. I might be tempted and Tocchet. I don't quite understand. Like the Tocchet situation's odd. I don't think fans should just say, I don't want an ex-Flyer here. I mean, Tocchet's a good coach. And when you discuss Tocchet, this is another misconception. And I understand this misconception. He's just kind of like Tortorella. He's a tough.
That's my opinion. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Because Rick Tocchet is one of the best communicators that I've ever seen with players. Here's the difference. If you saw what happened in Vancouver, that is a freaking mess, okay? From what they had to trade to the Rangers to Pettersson. I mean, it's just, they have a team, had the guy in the front office, Jimmy's talks to everybody. It's chaos on what goes on. And that market for hockey is crazy. Those fans are all over you all the time. Tortorella wanted you, he wouldn't go to you. He'd make you knock on his door and come in. Tocchet will go to dinner with you to try to get things to work. That's the misconception. I covered him as a player. I think there's a built-in chip that he has to guard against that, because he played for Keenan and saw a team shut down with that kind of situation. He brings guys in, talks to them all the time, doesn't wait for them to come to him. And if he does anything, he talks to them before he talks to the media. I understand, because he was a physical player and he speaks his mind after a game or whatever, but he communicates unbelievably well with players in the off season, even to go in and discuss things with them. So I think some of his reputation is not valid, but he's not a soft coach at all. But I think that might hurt him. I think even players might think that of him. But if they just talk to people that played for him, they would understand it's completely different. It's like Berube. Berube's an excellent communicator. But if you didn't know him, he didn't won the cups, or you got a different story, you would think, oh no, it's the tough guy. He's going to coach. No, it's not always true like that. I don't know what your thoughts on whether Shaw, where you would tend to go with this.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, I will say the communication factor swayed me a little bit, if that's, how it is. And he's totally different from Torts in the communication department. That's a big difference. So sway me a little bit on that. I'd say this. Here's my number one thing I would like to see if possible. Now, it regards someone else making a decision first. But if the Penguins move on from Mike Sullivan, I would love Mike Sullivan to be like that good, solid option. But I'm agreeing with you. I actually think that there's a chance Shaw could sit down and at least interview with more of an idea behind it than I originally thought at the time. I don't know if I don't want to get swayed to the knee-jerk reaction of what we're seeing here, which is my fear. So I think it would be an outside shot looking in. But it's more of a realistic sit-down than I ever would have thought, to be clear. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know if they're going to go the Tocchet route. I wouldn't hate it. I don't know if I'd love it either. I think it would be fine, But Sullivan would be number one. And then I'll throw this your way, which every NHL team is probably calling to see as it is. But David Carl, would you go that route?
Yeah, David Carl's interesting. I mean, he obviously wins all the time. I mean, Denver's a hell of a program, and they're very well coached. I sort of like the Western Michigan style, or sometimes when you watch hockey in college or junior, it's like, will this work here? What kind of systems or whatever is that going to relate? The BU thing with the freshmen coming in, the BC needs more developed players usually the way they play. But I can see that. I don't think that would be their top. I think that they were burned once with Hackstall. So it would mean to me that you would have to have some kind of NHL experience before to see what goes on. And I don't know what kind of money also. I mean, if I'm Carl, frankly, if I'm a college coach, I don't want any part of the NHL. If I have a good program going, I'm like, this is a great deal. Now, I know at Western Michigan, he makes sort of 187,000 base, and it just got to, I think he had to win the national championship to get to $500,000.
Wow.
So, if you offer him an NHL contract, it's like, well, I think
he's an interesting character too.
Yeah, he is. So maybe they go there, but I love Sully. Before they fired Tortorella, I was wondering about that because they're like this, those two, Torts and I'm like, there's no way Sully would ever take a job if he thought that was going to mean pushing Torts out or whatever. But now that Torts is gone, that would be my number one choice if Pittsburgh decided to move on from there. So then maybe we can develop that. Oh, before we wrap this up, so you go on in the afternoon show with those clowns, like what did I give you? 18 seconds, whatever it is. 50
Flyers in 50, but I do end up milking it to a good 7-8 minutes. I find a way to latch on as long as I can.
Then I've worked at WIP for like 100 years right now. Those clowns. I don't know how Ike puts up with it. You got people running around there thinking like, I listen to like Elliot, like the life support system for a $200 haircut. Thinks he can go out and hit home runs and score goals.
He said he could be a GM because he's watched Howie Roseman.
I'm like, okay, but you know what? I love him because he is entertaining as hell and he works his ass off. And Spike, so you got to deal with Spike, who looks like I don't even know, some drummer for some band that I never heard of. And it's like, you just compare ink with his. He's got weak ink too. So here's what you should do. You should tell him, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to talk Flyers hockey for an hour. I'm going to keep going. And if you go back to your show and without telling me, come back and talk to me. If I'm still talking about it and not stopped, and I do this for a whole hour, or whatever it is, then you have to give me 15 minutes or whatever. So you can be like, that guy that went in Senate and talked for like 2 days, that Booker guy. I don't know what they call those things, where you just keep talking and keep talking and keep talking in the Senate. This guy talked for 24 hours. It was with filibusters, they call it. So you can call it
You want me to do that with Flyers hockey? I can do it.
Call it a filibuster, at PHILA, a filibuster, and you just talk, and then they go back, and if you continue and you never stopped when they go back for the hour, they owe you a half hour on the show.
That's amazing. So I'm in a studio off air, but whenever they put it on, if I'm mid sentence,
you have to be talking. You cannot have stopped talking, and then they will owe it to you.
I love that.
They drive me crazy. Those guys. They drive me nuts. It's just I have to listen. Sometimes I think I think Ike is like thinking in his head, how did I get involved with these guys?
I know. He signed up for it. But I will say, all jokes aside, the Flyers and 50 thing, as the shtick is goofy, whatever, you only get 50 cents, it's working.
Oh, no, it works.
It's working.
Because Spike knows radio. Because believe me, he was my boss. He knows what the hell he's doing. He might sound like a dope, but he's no dope. He knows exactly what he's doing. And then they got the minor league pitcher there, Jack.
Oh, it's amazing. It's a hell of a trio.
He actually knows baseball. I'm impressed with his baseball knowledge.
Of course. Well, listen, they got their baseball. We got our puck. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. So maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah, I would love to. You kidding me? We got a big offseason now. This is huge. It's the biggest in franchise history, honestly.
Yeah. We got the draft. We got the lottery. I know Jonesy's going to be all, he's Mr. Lucky Charm. So we'll see what happens. If he ever gets the number one pick, he's going to be insufferable. No. So we'll see what happens. All right. Thanks a lot, Broads. And that'll wrap it up for South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original brought to you by Jack Daniels and 94 WIP.